Hello everyone, welcome to Borderless, RGB Live's first ever entirely English program. In this program, we will be connecting to people all around the world and chat briefly about what's happening in their locations. Today, we will be connecting to John in Vienna. Hello, John. Thanks for agreeing to meet with us. Where are you right now?
I'm in Vienna, in the palace of the Habsburg Empire where they used to go in summer times. It's called the Belvedere Schloss.
Awesome. If you're available, I would like to ask you a few questions.
Sure, I am.
So, as the number of the infected by the coronavirus has increased in the last couple of weeks in Austria, do you believe the measurements taken by the government are efficient enough? Why do you think the numbers are still growing?
The fact that the numbers are growing is a bit tied to the fact that the measurements here were put in place a little late. I mean, if you look at neighboring countries like Italy and Germany, Switzerland, the prime minister and his coalition here tried to make the economy work as long as possible, which of course turned out to people to go out as much as possible to restaurants and cafes, which right now is the #1 hotspot for infections. So now the new lockdown has closed all restaurants, all bars, all museums. So almost everything other than libraries is closed in public life. I do believe that they will probably work for the first month or so, but eventually I think we'll have to go into a stricter lockdown, just like in Germany, where everything is closed.
What is your personal opinion on the protest by the people of Austria for the coronavirus? Are people actually following the measurements? And also, I want to ask you, how is the government reacting to all of these protests going on?
Yeah, well, so the protests, it's actually not that many if you think about it. So protests usually have around 2, 3, sometimes 5,000 people. And if you look at Vienna, for example, a 2 million city, that's not a huge protest. There are, of course, mostly from the far right parties, a lot of people who don't like the measurements, the new lockdowns. The government, of course, is opposing them. And whenever they do protest, they do it without masks, which is illegal right now. So the police comes and detains those who don't have masks on. I saw actually a protest yesterday. There were, I think, around 20 people or so arrested. From how I see it, these protests will go on for the time being where we have lockdowns, but for the most part, the Austrian people do follow the lockdown measurements.
Great. Well, now I want to ask you about the night which cafes and restaurants were to be closed early, the start of the curfew. People decided to go out and have fun, maybe for the last time for a while. And then there was an attack in Vienna. Do you believe it was an attack on the synagogue? Where were you on the night of the 2nd of November? Also, how is everyone in the city after this attack?
So for the first part, so yes, the attack happened near a synagogue, but as we know now, the main focus of the attack was not the synagogue. It was more to create a lot of angst and a lot of terror in the last day where people were out, because as you just mentioned, it was the last day where the bars were still opened. And the fact that the synagogue also happens to be in the bar district, where what we in Vienna call the Bermuda Triangle, where all the bars are, where young people go to drink and to dance, that's more likely of it. We see now that motive of the attack was to harm as many people in a small circle, which is exactly where you would go if you wanted that night. For the second one, I was out as well because it was the last night. I was not in a bar. I was close to the city center in a park. It was a lot warmer than it is right now. So we were out drinking with friends. I mean, in a small city like Vienna, you hear something like that quite fast, where all of a sudden there were police helicopters and a lot of police rushing into the inner city. So, well, we got on our bikes and we went home as fast as possible. About the city's mood right now, so the day after was very dark, because Vienna is really not a city that's used to attacks like these. So the next day there was no one out on the streets. The curfew is, by the way, from 8 to 6 in the morning. So during the day you can go out, but there was no one on the streets. Like I went grocery shopping to a shop which was on my street, and even that was empty. It was very strange. Things have calmed down now. I've been going to the city center frequently in the last 2 days, and everything seems to be normal. A lot of candles and a lot of flowers in the places where the attack happened.
Thank you so much, John, for joining us today and sharing your opinions. I hope to see you again sometime soon.
Thank you. It was great doing this.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Right now, we will be connecting to Laura all the way from Canada. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you're available, I would like to ask you a few questions.
course.
So to start with, the US-based Whole Foods market have forbidden to wear the symbol of remembrance, the poppy flower, a while back. But now, poppies weren't allowed under recently updated uniform policy, which affected 14 locations across Canada. But the company never stated why they were taking this precaution. They stated that their intention was never to single out the poppy or to suggest a lack of support for Remembrance Day. After this, the Prime Minister have stated that this was a huge mistake. Then, the Whole Foods market have reversed act. Do you think the reason for the change was the backlash of the public?
Well, the poppy, which is this little flower that usually Canadians and citizens of UK and other Commonwealth countries put it to the days leading up to November 11th. And it's actually a powerful symbol of the remembrance that who were fallen during World War I. And it's not a political symbol. So when a couple days ago we woke up, the news was everywhere, Whole Foods banned. They said it was due to their uniform policy. And well, obviously the public backlash was amazing, especially on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And some people were thinking maybe it's because of the pin, because there's a pin on it. So maybe it's like a safety issue, but they never said why. And then Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he will introduce a legislation for businesses if they prohibit putting on the poppy. And then the Canadian House of Commons actually passed unanimous motion condemning the Whole Foods move. But I think the biggest part of the change in decision of Whole Foods was definitely the social media and the backlash from the public.
Thank you. Now, to move on from that topic, I want to ask you about the cases of coronavirus in Canada. So as you know, it's increasing just like everywhere else in the world. Every day, a new record is being broken. What is your personal opinion about the measurements that is being taken in Canada? Are the citizens following them properly? Is the action taken enough? Due to increasing number, have there been any extra measurements done by the government?
Well, currently we have, I think, around 268,000 cases, and of those, 215,000 of them is already resolved. So the active cases in Canada is around 40,000, which is not actually very bad, but most of the cases are in Ontario and Quebec, which is the two biggest provinces. And obviously the deaths are also in those two provinces. But in terms of what has government done since COVID appeared in Canada is, well, they increased their testing capacity. Up to this day, I think they did almost 10 million tests. And of those tests, 2.5% of them came back positive, which is not a bad number compared to US, which is our neighbor. They have I think if I'm correct, they have an 8% positivity rate. And well, I think the government is doing all they can at this point, but there is a balance between saving lives and, well, preventing economy to collapse, right? So what they're doing is borders are still closed in Canada. Unless you're a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or an immediate member of a Canadian citizen, you're not allowed into the country. If you're a Canadian traveler coming back from a different country, there's a mandatory quarantine period of 14 days, and government actually checks and see if you're actually in quarantine and not violating it. And well, indoor dining, movie theaters, gyms are closed due to the second wave, and people are actually taking it very seriously. Face masks and facial coverings are required by law only in indoor public places. So walking down the street, people don't have to wear it, but in indoor places, they have to wear it by law. And businesses, they have the right to refuse entry if someone is not using a face mask or a face cover. Schools are open. That was a bit of a controversy. Some people were thinking that, well, it's a good thing that kids are going back to school. Some people think there will be a lot of outbreaks in school because obviously kids, they are in this environment in contact contact with many different people. So, but since then, it's not as bad as what people were thinking in the first place. I guess they took some health and safety measurements, and what they're doing is they're trying to limit the contact of students, and universities, obviously, they are doing online courses instead of in-class classes. Also, I guess another thing that what they did is they created two mobile phone applications. One is ArriveCan for travelers coming outside of Canada, so they downloaded, and that way government can control the spread. And then the second one is the COVID alert app. So it uses Bluetooth, and if you are somehow just passed by someone who has been tested positive, it actually sends you a notification and alerts you so that you can isolate yourself, and if needed, you can get tested. So I think there is, like I said before, there is a balance between saving lives and then preventing the economy to collapse. So far, I think they are not doing that bad compared to some other countries, but second wave is pretty much here. The cases has been increasing. Well, the number of tests that they're conducting compared to the spring is higher too. But what we're looking at is the percentage rate of the positive results. So it's pretty much stable, not as bad.
Okay, Lara, thank you so much for providing such well information. I'm so glad that you joined us here today. I do not have any further questions. You have answered everything that I had in mind. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you sometime soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you so much to Laura and Jan for joining us all the way from Canada and Austria this week. This program was brought to you by Borderless RGB Live. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.